I got pregnant with my husband's brother's baby. He filed for divorce, took our house, disappeared, and left me begging to tell the truth. My life is destroyed. I'm sitting in my mother's spare bedroom surrounded by boxes I haven't unpacked in 4 months. My phone has a number in it that goes straight to voicemail. I've called it 47 times. Not one callback. Not one text. Not one word. The number belongs to my husband. My ex-husband. Warren. And the reason he won't answer is because I'm pregnant with his brother's baby. And he found out the way you never want the person you love to find out anything. Completely. All at once. No warning. I did this. I know I did this. I'm writing it down because I need to stop pretending to myself that there's a version of this story where I'm not the reason everything burned. Let me tell you who Warren is before I tell you what I did to him. Because if you're going to understand the weight of what I destroyed, you have to know what it actually was. We met when I was 24. He was 27. He worked in logistics. Not flashy. Not the kind of man who walked into a room and made everyone look. He was the kind of man who showed up early, stayed late, remembered your coffee order, and meant every single word he said. When Warren told you something, you could write it down and refer to it forever because he never changed his answer. We dated for 2 years. He proposed at my parents' kitchen table. Not at a restaurant. Not some elaborate production. He sat down with my father first and asked. Then he sat down with me and said, I want to spend the rest of my life being the person you can count on. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We got married in September. Bought a house 14 months later. A 3-bedroom in a neighborhood we had driven through 3 times, pointing at houses saying maybe one day. Closed on it on a Friday. He carried me over the threshold and then immediately started making a list of what needed fixing. That was Warren. Already thinking about what came next. Already planning how to take care of it. We had been married for 3 years when I met Devin. Devin is Warren's younger brother. 27. The kind of man who walks into a room and makes everyone look. They're nothing alike. I don't think I fully understood that until it was too late. Warren is steady and certain. Devin is interesting and uncertain and always moving toward whatever thing he decided he needed next. He'd been living in Atlanta for 2 years. Came back to town for their mother's birthday in the spring. Warren picked him up from the airport. I watched them walk through our front door together and thought, they really don't look like brothers. I'm telling you this because I want you to see where it started. Not to excuse it. There's no excuse. I want you to see how ordinary the beginning was. How it wasn't this obvious thing. How it started as something that felt like nothing. Devin was staying with us for a week. Warren worked long hours. I worked from home. Devin and I had coffee in the mornings. Talked. He was easy to talk to. Funny. Asked questions about me specifically, not about me and Warren, just about me. What I wanted. What I was working toward. What I thought about things. I told myself that was just him being friendly. I was lying to myself from day 3. I'm not going to walk you through the details of how it happened because they don't matter and because the details don't change the fact that it happened. What I will tell you is that it wasn't an accident. There's no version of this where I tripped and fell into something. I made a choice. And then I made it again. And then I made it one more time after that before Devin went back to Atlanta. 3 times. Spread across 6 days. In the house Warren and I had bought together 14 months before. In the house he carried me over the threshold of. After Devin left, I told myself it was done. I told myself it would never happen again. I told myself what a lot of people in my position tell themselves, which is that this was a mistake that could just stay in the past if I was careful enough. I was not careful enough. Devin started texting 4 days after he left. I should have shut it down. I didn't. The texts became calls. The calls became planning. 6 weeks after he left town, he was back for a long weekend, and I told Warren I was visiting my friend Camille and I wasn't visiting Camille. This went on for 4 months. 4 months of lying to a man who showed up every single day and meant every single word he said. 4 months of looking at Warren over the dinner table and performing a version of myself that was doing none of the things I was actually doing. 4 months of answering his Sunday calls to my parents with my voice completely steady, sitting in a house he was paying the mortgage on, carrying a secret that was eating through everything. I told myself I had it under control. I found out I was pregnant on a Wednesday morning in November. 2 lines on a test I took in my car in the parking lot of a Walgreens. I sat in that parking lot for 22 minutes. I know it was 22 minutes because I watched the clock on my dashboard count it. The first thing I did was do the math. Warren and I hadn't been together in almost 6 weeks. We'd been distant. My fault. I'd been pulling away without admitting why. The last time Warren and I had been together was before the last time Devin came to town. The map said what I already knew. I called Devin from the parking lot. He picked up on the third ring. I said, I need to tell you something and I need you to stay on the phone. I told him. Silence. Then he said, what do you want me to do about it? I said, I want you to figure out with me what we're going to do. He said, Renee, I live in Atlanta. I said, I know where you live. He said, I can't do this right now. I have work. Call me tonight. He hung up. I sat in the parking lot for 3 more minutes. Then I drove home. Made dinner. Set the table. Ate with Warren and answered his questions about my day and listened to him talk about a problem at work he was trying to solve and said nothing. I said nothing for 12 more days. I called Devin every day for those 12 days. He picked up 3 times. The other 9 times it went to voicemail. When he did pick up, the conversations were short. He said he needed time to think. Said this was a complicated situation. Said he wasn't sure what the right move was. I said, the right move is to help me figure out what to tell Warren. He said, you want to tell Warren? I said, I can't not tell Warren. I'm pregnant. He said, you could say it's his. I want you to understand that I did not immediately say no to that. I sat with that sentence for a full day. I considered it. I turned it over. I thought about what it would mean to have this baby and let Warren believe it was his. I thought about the first year. I thought about the way Warren would be about a pregnancy. How he would be the person who showed up early, stayed late, remembered everything, meant every word. How he would be that person for a baby he thought was his. How he would love that baby the way he loved everything, which was completely. I thought about it for a full day. And then I thought about that baby growing up inside a lie. And I thought about what happened to people who grew up inside lies. I just read stories about that. I knew what it cost. I could not do it. I called Devin on the 13th day and said, I'm telling Warren tonight. I need you to be prepared for what happens after. He said, Renee. I said, tonight. He said, okay. He didn't say anything else. Warren came home at 6:47. I know the exact time because I had been watching the clock for 2 hours. He set his bag down. Poured water. Said, something smells good. I had made dinner. Couldn't tell you what it tasted like. We ate. He talked. I responded. When the plates were cleared, I said, I need to tell you something. He looked at me. I said it. I told him I had been seeing Devin. I told him it started in the spring when Devin came for his mother's birthday. I told him it had been 4 months. I told him I was pregnant and I knew it wasn't his. I said all of it in one go. No pausing. No softening. I had decided that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it completely. Warren sat across from me and said nothing for a very long time. Then he stood up. Picked up his phone from the counter. Walked to the bedroom. Closed the door. Not a slam. A click. He closed it the way you close a door when there's nothing left to say that a closed door doesn't say better. I sat at the table for 20 minutes. Then I knocked. He said, don't. I said, Warren. He said, do not come in this room tonight. He was on the phone with a lawyer the next morning. I know this because I heard him. I was in the kitchen and he was in the second bedroom that we'd been using as an office, and he wasn't yelling. His voice was completely steady. He was talking about filing timelines. About the house. About assets. I stood in the hallway and listened to my husband make an appointment to dismantle our life while his voice stayed completely level. That steadiness was the worst thing. If he had screamed at me, I would have understood it. I would have accepted it. I have accepted every name anyone has wanted to call me since then because I earned it. But he didn't scream. He just got quiet and got organized and started making calls. I tried to talk to him that day. He said, I'll need you to arrange somewhere to stay by the end of next week. I said, Warren, can we please talk about this? He said, there's nothing to talk about. I said, I know I destroyed everything, I know that, but I need you too. He said, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to have a conversation where you explain to me why this happened or what you need from me right now. I can't do that. I need you to arrange somewhere to stay. He went back into the office. Closed the door. I called Devin that night from my car in the driveway. He let it ring through to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted. Said, Warren knows. I need to talk to you. He replied 40 minutes later. He said, I'm so sorry this is happening. I said, what are we going to do? He said, I don't know. I said, I'm pregnant, Devin. That's not a situation where I don't know is an answer. He said, I need some time. I said, with what? With what do you need time? He didn't reply. I sat in the driveway of my house, mine and Warren's, the one we closed on a Friday, and he carried me over the threshold of, and I called Devin 6 more times. Each one went to voicemail. I left 2 messages. Both of them said some version of please call me back. Please. He did not call back. The lawyer papers arrived 9 days later. Warren had moved fast. I didn't know he could move that fast. I didn't know those processes could move that fast when someone was determined enough. He had contacted an attorney the morning after I told him. He had documents ready inside of a week and a half. I opened the envelope at the kitchen table. He was asking for the house. Not just filing for divorce. Asking for the house specifically. We had both contributed to the down payment. Both our names were on the mortgage. But his lawyer had apparently looked at the financial records and found that Warren's contribution to the down payment was significantly larger than mine and had structured an argument around that. I called my own attorney that afternoon. She said, it's not a slam dunk for him, but it's not nothing either. Depends on how he wants to fight it. He wanted to fight it? I found that out over the next 2 months. Warren did not let that house go easily. He was organized and methodical and documented and had clearly spent 9 days building the strongest possible case before he filed. He had records of everything. Every payment. Every contribution. Laid out in a way that made the argument clearly. I moved into my mother's spare bedroom on a Saturday in January. Boxes I told myself I would unpack in a week. Boxes that are still in the corner of that room 4 months later. Devin stopped answering my calls completely in December. Not slowing down. Not less often. Just stopped. Completely. His number still connects. It rings. It just goes to voicemail every time. I've left messages. I've sent texts. I've sent 1 email. All of them have said some version of, I'm carrying your child. I need you to be part of this conversation. Please respond. Nothing. Warren's mother called me once. She called me in December about 3 weeks after the papers arrived. I thought she was going to yell at me. She didn't. Her voice was completely flat. She said, I raised both of those boys. I want you to know that what Devin is doing right now is not what I raised him to do. I'm ashamed of him. That doesn't help you. But I need you to know I'm ashamed of him. I said, thank you. She said, I can't be in contact with you after this. Warren is my son and I have to stand with him. But I wanted to say that. She hung up. I haven't heard from her since. Our mutual friends chose Warren. I say this not as a complaint. I say it because it's the accurate description of what happened. One by one, over the course of December and January, I watched the group chat go quiet. Watched the invitations stop coming. Watched the birthday messages dry up. Our friend Tasha texted me in January. She said, I love you and I'm not disappearing, but I need you to know that I'm also Warren's friend and right now he needs the people around him more than you do. I'll check in. But I can't be in the middle. She has checked in twice. Once in January. Once in February. Both times short. Both times kind but brief. Like she's discharging a debt by making contact. The others didn't even send a Tasha-level message. They just went quiet. I understand it. I'm not saying they're wrong. You choose people in situations like this and they chose Warren and Warren deserved to be chosen. I was the one who burned it. I don't get to be surprised that the smoke went in my direction. But I want you to know what it feels like to watch an entire life, not just a marriage, an entire life, the friends, the house, the future you had planned, just quietly realign itself around someone else while you sit in your mother's spare bedroom surrounded by boxes you can't bring yourself to unpack. My job found out. I work in marketing at a mid-sized firm. Or I did. I still technically work there, but it's different now and I don't think it'll stay that way for long. I don't know exactly how it got there. Warren didn't do it. That's not who he is. Devin might have said something to someone who knew someone. Or it just moved the way these things move in a world where everyone is 6 people away from everyone else. What I know is that in February my manager called me in for a check-in that was clearly not a check-in. She said she'd heard some things and wanted to make sure I was okay and that my situation wasn't affecting my work. She used the phrase my situation. I knew what she meant. My numbers have been fine. I've shown up. Done the work. But the check-in happened and now there are CCs on emails where there didn't used to be CCs and my name wasn't on the quarterly project list the way it usually would be. I'm not fired. But I can feel the edges of something changing. The kind of change that doesn't announce itself. Just happens gradually until one day you realize it's been happening for months. My father hasn't spoken to me since he found out. My mother told him. I asked her to. I couldn't do it myself. I was 7 weeks pregnant and living in their spare room, and I couldn't sit across from my father and say the words. She told him on a Thursday night. I was in the spare room and I heard his voice through the wall. Not the words. Just the sound. The sound of a man processing something that changed the way he understood his daughter. He knocked on my door on Friday morning. I said, "Come in." He stood in the doorway for about 10 seconds. Then he said, "I need some time with this." He has been in the house with me every day since then. We pass each other in the kitchen. He nods. I nod. He asks, sometimes, if I need anything. Practical things. Do you need me to pick something up? Is the car making that noise still? Small practical things. Nothing about the baby. Nothing about Warren. Nothing about Devin. He is present and he is functional and he is completely closed off from me in a way that is almost worse than if he had yelled. My father has always been the person I called when anything went wrong. Flat tire. Job problem. Anything. I would call and he would pick up and the first thing he would say was, "Tell me what's happening." And then he would help. I don't call him now. I don't think he would pick up. I'm 5 months pregnant. I've been to every appointment alone. Sat in waiting rooms surrounded by couples and women with their mothers and friends. Filled out forms. Answered questions about my support system. Said, "Just me," when the nurse asked if I wanted someone called back. The baby is a girl. I found out at 18 weeks. The sonographer said, "Looks like a girl." And I lay there looking at the screen and thought about what I'd done and what was coming and what this child's life was going to look like. Born into something that wasn't her fault. Coming into a world where her father is a man in Atlanta who has stopped answering his phone and her mother is living in a spare bedroom and the man who would have been her father in every way that mattered filed for divorce 8 months ago. I cried in the car for 20 minutes after that appointment. Not from happiness. From understanding, finally and completely, what my decisions actually cost. I have called Warren 47 times. I keep an exact count because it matters to me to know the number. To not let myself minimize it or round it down. 47 calls. Every single one of them went to voicemail. I have left 19 messages. The messages said different things at different stages. Early ones were more desperate. More "please call me, please just talk to me." The middle ones were more practical. Said I wasn't asking him to come back or forgive me or do anything. Said I just needed to hear his voice once. Said I needed to tell him I was sorry in a way that wasn't a voicemail. The recent ones are shorter. Most recent one I said, "I know you're never going to call me back. I think I've known that for a while. I just keep calling because not calling feels like admitting it's completely over and I'm not ready to do that. I know that's not fair to you. I'm sorry." He didn't call back. He never calls back. Devin's mother reached out to me last month. Not Warren's mother. Devin and Warren's mother. Calling again. Different message this time. She said she had spoken to Devin. She said she told him directly that he needed to step up. She said he needed to be financially and practically present for this child. She said she made it clear that she expected it. I said, "What did he say?" She paused. Then she said, "He said he'd think about it." I said, "He said he'd think about it." She said, "I know. I know that's not enough. I'm working on it." I don't know what working on it means when the person you're working on is 27 years old and has been sending every call from the mother of his child to voicemail for 5 months. I don't know what changes between now and the moment I go into labor. I don't know where Devin actually is or what he actually thinks or whether he's lost any sleep over any of this. What I know is that in 4 months I'm going to have a daughter. And right now the list of people who will be in the waiting room is my mother. I've been going to therapy since February. My therapist doesn't tell me what I want to hear. She doesn't sit across from me and say, "You made a mistake but you're a good person, things will get better." She asks hard questions. She makes me sit with the answers. Last session she asked me what I was actually trying to accomplish by still calling Warren. I said I wanted to apologize. She said I'd left 19 voicemails. She said, "What's the apology for, really?" I thought about it. I said, "I think I want him to tell me what I am now. I want him to be the person who defines what this made me. Because if he says it out loud then I know. And if I know then I can figure out what to do with it." She said, "What if he never tells you? What if you have to define it yourself?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Here's what I know now that I didn't know before. I know that the things you do in secret have a weight that lives in your body. That I spent 4 months carrying that weight alongside Warren. Sitting across from him at dinner. Answering his questions about my day. Watching him make plans for a future he didn't know was already gone. And that weight didn't feel bad enough while I was carrying it. It should have felt worse. The fact that I could carry it and keep functioning and keep lying, I think about that a lot. About what that says about me. I know that Devin was never what I thought he was. I don't mean that as an excuse. I mean it as an accounting. The person I thought he was, the one who asked about me specifically and made me feel seen in a way that felt different from anything, that person showed up for 6 days and a handful of weekends and then disappeared completely when the situation required him to be real. I built something in my head out of stolen hours in hotels and texts that felt meaningful, and I called it real. It wasn't real. It was just new. And new is not the same thing as better. It is nowhere near the same thing. I know that Warren is not coming back. I have known this for a while. The 47 calls are not optimism. They're grief that hasn't finished converting into acceptance yet. I know that I had something. I had the actual thing. The man who showed up every day and meant every word. The house we pointed at from the street before we could afford it. The future that was being built carefully and on purpose. And I walked away from it while it was happening. Not in a moment of crisis. Not because things were bad. Things were good. I walked away from good because something new was standing next to it, and I told myself the new thing was something it wasn't. My daughter doesn't have a name yet. I have a list of names on my phone. I look at it sometimes. Add one. Remove one. I haven't landed anywhere yet. I keep thinking about what I want her to know. What I want her to understand about where she came from. Not the details. Not yet. But eventually. Someday she's going to ask about her father. Someday she's going to ask about the man in the photos who isn't in her life anymore. Someday she's going to look at me and ask for the story. I owe her an honest one. It's the least I can do. Warren filed the divorce 9 months ago. It was finalized last month. I signed the papers at my attorney's office on a Tuesday morning. Initialed every page. Signed at the bottom where it said all the legal language about the dissolution of the marriage. Handed the pen back. My attorney said, "Do you have any questions?" I said no. I went to my car. Sat there for a while. I thought about a September afternoon. A kitchen table. The man who sat down with my father first and then came and said, "I want to spend the rest of my life being the person you can count on. I want to be that for you." He was that person. He was that person for 3 years, and he would have been that person for 30 more, and I knew it, and I chose anyway. That's the thing I'll carry. Not the divorce papers. Not the house I don't live in anymore. Not the phone that goes to voicemail. Not even the daughter who's coming who deserves better than the situation I built for her before she was born. The thing I carry is knowing that I had the real thing. I looked right at it. And I burned it for something that wasn't even real. I still call Warren. 48 times now. It still goes to voicemail. I don't leave a message anymore. I just let it ring. I know he's not going to pick up. I know the call logs on his phone probably just say Renee every few weeks, and he looks at it and doesn't move, and the call ends and nothing changes. I just need him to know I called. That's all I have left. This is what I'm left with. A spare bedroom. An unpacked life. A daughter on the way who's going to be born into the wreckage of what I built and then tore down. A father who nods at me across the kitchen. A phone that rings into nothing. I did this. All of it. I looked right at the real thing and I told myself I deserved to see what else was out there. What was out there was this. A phone ringing in an empty room. And a man who already knows everything I need to tell him and has decided, very quietly and very finally, that he has nothing left to say.